All right, everybody, welcome to our webinar today. My name is Trevor Shipp. I'll be your presenter. And we're covering eBay. Specifically, we're going to go into a little bit of detail on the fee portion of eBay. Whereas a seller, when you make a sale, or sometimes even when you're listing products, there are certain fees that you incur, the majority of which come after you make a sale. So listing items on eBay isn't really expensive, and in a lot of cases it's free. But after you make your sale, you usually incur some kind of a fee. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about why that's not a negative thing either. There's a perception out there sometimes amongst our clients too, like, why is eBay charging me a fee? It's not fair. But it is fair, and we'll kind of explain why that is. It's a good positive thing. It's more of a privilege to sell on eBay than anything, and I want you guys to consider it that way. In fact, I would argue that they could probably charge more in fees and get away with it because their fee structure as it is pretty good. So I want to kind of go over how that affects us so that we can price in those fees into our products and still be very profitable as we're selling on eBay. So we'll go over some of that stuff as well. Let's talk about why fees first. So just to summarize again, whenever we sell on eBay as a seller, that's actually how the company makes their money. In fact, I'm gonna pull up a chart here. I don't know if you guys have seen eBay, their stock lately, but over the last few years, eBay as a company has been they've been really strong. Let me just pull up their stock price here. I'm curious what it is right now. Yeah, it's trading at $53.50 a share. And you can see, let's pull it out to the last 5 years. You can look at their stock price, what it's been doing. It's kind of flatlined a little bit since 2013, but if all of us would have invested money in eBay back in, the start of 2010 when it was at 23, 24 bucks a share, or as low as 20 bucks a share, it's now up to 53.50. eBay is doing just fine as a company, but eBay is driven by profit like any other company, right? And the way eBay makes a profit is off of sellers making sales, at least on their eBay platform. So they're in business to make a profit, and that's fine, and they're going to stay in business because they're charging us fees. So I don't mind that they're charging us fees, and I don't want you to look at that as a negative at all because they've got to make money too. We just need to make sure that we understand what those fees are. We price them into our products effectively, and then it's a non-factor. We're making money right alongside eBay. It's a good partnership, and that's really the way we ought to look at it. Okay, I want to show you guys first of all what the fees are specifically. So there's a couple of different types of fees. Okay, there's one called an insertion fee, and then there's one called a final value fee. Those are your two type of eBay fees. And then you also have on top of that, I guess I might as well add to this right now, you've also got your PayPal fee. PayPal collects a fee because they're the one that's transacting the whole transaction. They're kind of like the merchant account in this case. So we need to consider number one, insertion fee, number two, the final value fee, and number three, the PayPal fee. Okay. Number one, the insertion fee. So back in the day, for sellers that have been on eBay for a while, you used to get charged all the time just to put something on eBay because it's taking up space on their server. So they used to charge you a little fee for it. Well, they don't really do that now. They do and they don't. So the way it works is, and I'm going to give you guys this web address that I'm sitting on right now. You can find it by just Googling eBay fees, and it'll bring up their official standard selling fees page. We'll click on that, and it brings us in here. And I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see this better. Hopefully you guys can see the screen just a little bit better now. And this always stays accurate on what those fees are when you're selling on eBay. So we want to look at these different types. I was just telling you about the insertion fee, which is right here, and then you've got the final value fee. Insertion fee it applies to when you actually create a listing, okay? So the way it works right now, if you look right here under basic fees, it says insertion fees for your first 50 to 100 listings per calendar month are free, okay? But that depends, like they say, that depends on your format and the category you list in. But theoretically, your first 50 to 100 listings are supposed to be free, but there are some exclusions there, okay? So we'll talk about those, which is nice because you guys that are just getting started on eBay, who are just starting to list, you're not going to get hit with any of those insertion fees, because typically after you kind of work through this threshold of 50 to 100 free, you usually get hit with a 30-cent insertion fee, which means every single time you list or relist a product, you get hit with 30 cents. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound bad, right? 30 cents isn't that big of a deal. But if you list, 500 items a month, it could become a big deal, right? That could be very expensive. And the thought is you're going to be making sales anyway, and those sales are going to be paying for your insertion fee. But you want to kind of keep things lean and mean as you get started. For those of you guys here that are doing a lot of listings right now, if that insertion fee is hurting you a little bit, you can set up an eBay store which lowers the insertion fee. We won't talk about that right now. Today, we just want to make sure you guys understand sort of the basics of these insertion fees, okay? So you get 50 to 100 free. Auction, so here's the thing. It depends on the type of listing. You guys know that, or you'll learn to know that when you list on eBay, you have two different kinds of listings you can do. You can either do an auction or you can do a fixed price, right? You can just sell it at $50, and whoever wants to pay you $50 pays you $50, and that's that. Or you can have an auction starting at whatever and have people bid on it. What they're saying here is that if your first 100 listings that you put up that are auction style listings are free, okay? So it doesn't even matter what category you put them in. They're going to end up being free. So that's good to know. So you guys that are really, really price sensitive right now and just certainly can't afford to put out any money as you're starting to list items on eBay, we'll do them as auctions. And not that means that we're going to start the product we're selling at 99 cents and hope it sells for a higher price. You can start an auction at any price you want. So what I teach my clients to do is whatever price we would like to sell the item at, put it as an auction. Okay? So it's an auction at $59.99 if that's what you'd like to sell it at. And then if you only get one bid on the item, that's fine. You sold it for what you wanted to sell it for. It may even get a few more bids and go up from there. But that's the idea. That if you do it that way, your first 100 items during the calendar month, you won't get charged that 30-cent fee, and that'll be that. Now, I think you do a little better in sales if you do the buy it now style. And the buy it nows, I think you get up to 50 on the buy it now. The problem is, the problem is it depends on the category. So you look right here, it says select categories eligible for 100 free insertion fee auction style listings per month. These right here, so if you list items that would fall within any of these categories, those work, right? Those fit the parameters we're talking about for not having to pay any insertion fees. So I know it seems a little confusing because it depends. I mean, if somebody asks you, does it cost anything to list an item on eBay? Well, the answer is no, but it depends, right? It depends on what kind of format you use, and it depends on what category you put the item in. Generally speaking, though, and just to make it simple for all of us, if you're listing using an auction style listing, it's going to be free almost every single time for your first 100 listings. Now, listing 101 that you put up, you'll get charged a 30-cent fee. okay? Or, you know, listing 102, you'll get a 30-cent fee. But at the start of the next month, that'll all reset and you'll get your 100 free listings again. Now, that's for auctions, but if you're doing a fixed price listing, okay, a buy it now is what they call it. Those sort of depend on, you know, what category you're listing in. So, you know, those can be free, but again, it depends on the categories, and that's where it gets a little bit confusing. I'll find you guys the categories and maybe send out a link so you've got it. But if you look right here, you can always stay up to date on what those categories are. Again, it's if you can't see it very well, just say it. It's pages.ebay.com/help/sell/fees.html, and that'll always be up to date on what those fees are. Okay, so that's the insertion fee. So theoretically, it shouldn't cost us anything, especially at the beginning, to list an item on eBay. That's fee number one. Now, fee number two, guys, is called the final value fee. Okay, I'm going to click on this and kind of walk you guys through the final value fee section. Final value fees are a percentage commission that eBay takes. So, and it's always or almost always 10%. So that's what you can calculate. So if you sell something for $50, you're looking at a $5 fee that's going to go out to eBay. That's the rule. You sell something for $100, $10 is going out the door to eBay. Now, there are ways to get that fee lessened, but for newer sellers, it's always just going to be 10%, which makes it easy. It doesn't matter what category you sell it in, it's going to be 10%. Now, that even applies if you sold an item on eBay for $50 and then $10 of shipping, so you sold it for a total of $60, you collected $60, they're taking 10% on all the money that you actually brought in. So that's going to end up being $6, right? So that 10% is it's pretty easy to calculate. Just remember that 10% on whatever you sell the item for plus shipping. Okay, that's a final value fee. And then the last one is the PayPal fee. So in order for PayPal to transact your transaction, they charge a 2.9% plus 30-cent fee. So roughly 3%. I guess technically it's 2.9%, but I always say 3% for PayPal. 10% goes to eBay, 3% for PayPal, and that summarizes about what the fees will be like, plus an extra 30 cents. So each transaction PayPal does is not only that 3%, but it's also the 30 cents. Okay. So let me quiz you guys on something, just to keep your attention here, because I feel like I'm just kind of going on and on about these fees. It's not the most entertaining stuff, but it's important. It's stuff you guys definitely have to know. Let's say, as an example, and you guys can type in your answers as we're doing this quiz here together. But let's say, as an example, it's the first of the month, right? So the month is reset, and you've listed 50. Well, let's say you've listed 107 items, and you're looking to list your 108th item for the month, right? So day one of the month, you get out there and you're just cranking out listings. You're up to your 108th item. My question is, we're going to figure out together here, how much is the fee going to be? How much is eBay going to charge us and PayPal going to charge us for this specific item? So let's say this item you list as an auction for, let's say you start the auction at $99.99, okay? And then let's say later it sells at, let's say it sells at let's just keep the number easy. Let's say it sells for $140, okay? $140. Okay, so that's your sale price, $140. The customer pays you, the transaction's complete. My question for you guys is, how much do we owe eBay and PayPal? Okay, take a minute. Based on what we've talked about, you make that sale for $140, and let's say the shipping. Actually, let's make it more interesting. Let's say the shipping was $15 that you charged as well. Okay, you sold it for $140. It was an auction. The shipping was $15 on it. and I want to know how much eBay and PayPal are taking. So take a second, see if you can figure that out based on what we've talked about. You've got to consider three things, remember. You've got to consider A, was there an insertion fee? B, is there a final value fee? And C, what's the PayPal fee? And let's see if we can figure it out. I'm going to give you guys like a minute. Think about it, and then just start throwing in some of your answers into the chat, because I'm going to be curious what we're coming up with. By the way, B, thanks for coming. I just saw you come in. It's good to have you here. I need to figure out what it is here. I'm sitting back thinking, okay, you guys just figure it out. I guess I better figure it out too. All right, so I'm seeing some numbers come in. I'm seeing 2075, 1985, 1320, 2045. So I'm seeing a few different answers here. Let's see if we can agree on each part then. So let me ask you guys a question. Was in this example, was there an insertion fee? And if so, how much was the insertion fee? So there was, right? There definitely was. And the reason why we know there was an insertion fee is you ran an auction, but it was your 108th item. So your first 100 were probably free, since you're at your 108. Each of those items after 100, you were getting hit with that 30-cent fee. So there was. So we got 30 cents for our insertion fee, right? All right. So what about the final value fee? Remember, we sold this thing for $140 plus $15 of shipping. So what's our final value fee? That would bring us to a total of $155, right? Or $155 of a gross sale. So what would be our final value fee in this case? This one's a little easier because it's your final value fee is usually a constant, right? It's always, what did we decide, 10% usually? So if you sold it for $140, you got to add the shipping to that $155, multiply that by 10%, and you've got $15.50, right? Okay, so I'm seeing $15.50 come in as an answer. Okay, so we got $15.50, and then what about PayPal? PayPal charges 2.9% plus 30 cents, right, on what you sold it for, plus shipping. So whatever money is collected, that's how much it's going to be. So 155 times 0.029, that would be 2.9%, right? That's about 450. Plus, we said each transaction will always have 30 cents, right? Is a transaction fee from PayPal. So that's a total of 480. All right, so let's add it together. So 30 cents insertion, $15.50 for the 10% eBay fee, and then 480 for PayPal. I get 2060. Are you guys doing that math too? I want to make sure I'm right on that. 30 cents plus 15.50 plus 480, 2060. Yeah. Okay. It looks like everybody's math is right on. Okay, good. So that's good to know, right? I mean, that's $20.60 out of our profit that we need to allocate to eBay and PayPal. And you got to think, well, boy, that's a lot of money. You know, we only sold it for $155, and they're taking 20, over $20. But remember, eBay's such a big marketplace. They do tons of marketing for themselves that, you're not marketing these products at all, really. You're slapping them up on eBay, and eBay does the rest of the work for you. So as long as you have a good product that's in demand that people want to buy, eBay does the marketing, and that's well worth that $20. And the good news is, if we didn't sell this item, we had this thing up as an auction and nobody bought it, we don't owe a final value fee. We don't owe a PayPal fee. The only thing we would owe in this case is 30 cents. And for your first 100 items, that wouldn't be the case at all. You wouldn't owe anything. So, the fees aren't bad. The fees aren't bad at all. And I've sold on eBay for a long time knowing, I guess maybe being a little irritated. In fact, the first time I sold an item on eBay, I always tell this story. I sold this iPhone that I sold for like $400, and I sold it for a buddy of mine, and I was thrilled about it because I sold it, and I was like, great, that means I make $400, but that's not true, right? I had to take out my 10%. I had to take out my PayPal fee. You know what I mean? So these are things we've got to account as we're listing items for sale. Okay, so let me know if you guys have questions about that so far. I think that should be pretty straightforward. I want to show you guys, while I'm thinking about it, where you pay your fees and kind of how that process goes. So whenever a transaction takes place, you're going to owe two different entities money, right? You're going to owe eBay money and you're going to owe PayPal money. Well, eBay only bills you once a month. So you'll do sales all month long, and then you'll get an invoice from eBay that'll say, hey, this is how much you owe. Whereas PayPal, it's going to happen on the spot. So the minute your customer sends you money, your PayPal is going to deduct that 2.9% plus 30 cents. Okay, so just keep that in mind. They do it instantaneously, whereas eBay just does it, once a month or whatever. Let me log into an account here. I'm going to show you an account of mine that I kind of use for these webinars as kind of an example. I'm logged in on eBay right now. I can click my eBay up here at the top right. And I'm going to go, if I want to see how much I owe, I can go to account, the account tab right here. And I'll click on that. And then usually this is called your seller account section. So if I guess if you just click on account, it'll take you to your seller account. It kind of looks like this. Or if your screen looks a little different, you can put your mouse over account and find your seller account, just like that. Okay. And that takes you in and shows you about how much money you owe. So right now, my current balance is I owe $18.15. And so I can always see how much I owe, and they'll tell me, the amount is due as of November 7th. In fact, oddly enough, that's today, right? So I owe $18.15 for some sales that I've made on this account, maybe some insertion fees. It would be insertion fees and final value fees that I'd be looking at here. Now, if I look at that, I mean, to me that looks right because I don't do a lot of selling on this specific account right now. But if I looked at that and instead it was like $180 and I knew I'd only made a couple of sales, and I'm like, no way, there's no way that's right. I definitely don't owe eBay that much. Well, you can always go here to all account activity, this link, and you can look at, fees right here, or all account activity will just show you sort of like, what you've sold and then the final value fee if you had any insertion fees. So you can see that kind of real time, or you can go to an invoice. I'll just grab a random invoice here. Let's grab this one from August of 2013. It'll always have invoices here, and I can hit go, and it'll show me. It'll actually summarize my fees here. How much I paid, what the fees were. Yeah, I can scroll down through this document, and it'll show me every sale and my final value fee and et cetera, et cetera. So line by line, it's going to tell me for 100% certainty what my fees are. And if you want to dispute that ever, you can. Like if you see something that's a little out of whack, go ahead and do it. But anyway, that's where you review it. I actually find eBay is pretty accurate, honestly. So I honestly don't think you're going to see a lot of stuff that's out of whack there, but it's okay to check, and just make sure that you're not getting charged more than you should be. Now, if you want to pay your fees, you just pay it right here from your seller account. They'll give you an option right here. I actually have set it up to where they automatically deduct it from my PayPal, which you could do. You don't even have to use PayPal. You could use a credit card to pay them. That's fine. So whatever works. Now, the one thing you can't do is you can't sell on eBay, make a bunch of money, and then not pay your fees, because if you don't pay them, what they end up doing is they'll give you a warning or two, and then they'll close down your account, and you can't get back on until you pay your fees. So make sure you pay them. Remember, PayPal fees are already taken care of. Those are happening when the transaction actually happens itself. Okay. All right, so let's do one other example here, just to bring this whole thing home and make sure it works and you guys are getting it. Let's assume for just a second that I am on overstock.com. Okay. Let's say I'm going to use them as my supplier in this case. I'm just going to grab something at random here. Some bedroom furniture will do. I'm going to grab this item. Okay, this looks kind of nice. It's $132.99. Okay. So I'm gonna try to sell this on eBay, right? I know Overstock is a retailer, but I'm gonna take this item that's gonna cost me $132.99, and I'm gonna try to sell this on eBay. Okay, and then we're gonna see if we can all be on the same page with the fees on this one. So if I'm gonna do that, first of all, I've got to look at Overstock and think, okay, what's my total price gonna be? They're saying 132 here, but is there a shipping fee involved? And you can see up here at the top it says everyday free shipping over $50. So no shipping. So this is actually literally, this will cost me $132.99. Okay. We'll just, for the sake of this example, let's say our total product cost is $133. Okay. That's our total product cost. Okay. So let's say, what do you think, guys? Like, what should we mark this thing up to? I guess knowing that, there's going to be fees involved, we obviously couldn't sell this thing for $135, right? In theory, if you sold this for $135, that would leave you $2 in profit, but that's not true because we all know we have eBay fees and PayPal fees. So just looking at this, somebody give me a number. It doesn't have to be high or low. Just give me a number. What would you think we ought to try to sell this for? Knowing what we know about fees. Knowing that I guess the quick way to think about it in your head is, okay, whatever I sell my product for on eBay, I'm going to owe out 13% of my sale price. Usually that insertion fee, like I know it's 30 cents, but in the long run, as you get selling and making money, the 30 cents doesn't make that big of a difference. What really makes a big difference is the 13%. So somebody give me a number. What should we sell this for? And then we'll use that as an example and see if we can't figure out the fees out of it. Kirk, you answered first, so I'm just going to take yours. You said 180. So let's do it. So let's assume here we're selling this for 180. Okay. So I'm going to make some other assumptions here. I'm going to say that this is your. Let's say it's a buy it now. Okay. It's a buy it now item. It's your 10th item of the month, and you're selling it for 180. The question is, if it does in fact sell for 180, I want you guys to walk me through the three areas. Remember the three areas: insertion fee, final value fee, PayPal fee. I'll have you guys give me a number for each. We'll add it up and we'll see what I want to know what our total profit on this is, profit or loss, right? Assuming, of course, that we sell it for 180 and the price we're getting it for is 133. Okay, let me give you a minute to think about that, run some numbers, grab your calculators, and let's make sure that we're all on the same page here. Okay, so let's decide on what. I guess let's do this first. What is the insertion fee going to be on this? And I don't think this was made way clear earlier, but we talked about how as long as you're doing an auction, your first 100 listings are free. But when you're doing a buy it now listing, only your first 50 listings are free. Now, I said this was your 10th listing, right? So that would fall into that category. But if you guys can remember, there's actually some exclusions there that apply to buy it now listings. It could be your very first listing of the month and it's a buy it now, but if it falls into the baby category, you'll get a 30-cent fee on it. Or if it falls into the jewelry category, you'll get a 30-cent fee. In fact, let me bring over this screen so you guys can see it. I think I pointed this out a little bit earlier, but this right here, these categories, which are quite a few, honestly. These categories right here, if you list with a buy it now, you always get hit with a 30-cent fee. So this is a piece of furniture, right? And that's what we're listing right now. So does that fall in line with any of this? I don't think so, right? So since this is our 10th listing of the month and it's a buy it now, it's free. There's no insertion fee. Are we all in agreement there? Does that make sense to everybody? Why that would be free is a buy it now? I want to make sure that we're all good with that. Okay. I'm getting some yeses. I'm assuming you guys are nodding your heads. So I'm going to say, okay, let's go on to the next one. So no insertion fee, right? Okay. So what's our final value fee on this sale we just did for 180? Final value fee is, remember, 10% of whatever we sell it for, right? In this case, we sold it for 180. 10% of that, $18, right? Final value fee, I'm seeing some $18. Yep. Okay, so we're all on the same page there. What about the PayPal fee? That's 2.9% plus 30 cents, right? So I'm going to take 180 and multiply that by 0.029 for 2.9%. That gives me $5.22 plus the 30 cents, right? $5.52. I'm seeing everybody putting in good. Everybody put in $5.52. Good. So no insertion fee, $18 final value fee, $5.52 of PayPal fee. The question is now, after running all these numbers, how much did we make on this thing? Because remember, if we go back to Overstock, we paid Overstock $133, right? We brought in 180. We paid Overstock $133, $18 to eBay, $5.52 to PayPal. What does that give us, guys? I actually got to run that math then. Okay, I'm seeing $23.48. Yep, and that's what I'm getting from everybody else. Good. We're all in agreement then. So we made on that deal $23.48 after all the fees and calculations. Now, I know that probably seems like a lot to figure out, right? Some of you guys who've been doing eBay for a little while with me here, it's not a lot to figure out. It really isn't, because if you want to simplify all of this, this is the rule of thumb. Whatever you sell an item for, you're going to lose off the top 13%. So just calculate that in. You can do that in your head if you want. No, it doesn't. It doesn't account for some of the complications in, whether or not you're getting hit with an insertion fee. But in the grand scheme of things, hopefully the insertion fee isn't too big of a deal anyway, right? Because we're going to be making sales, we're going to be making money, and our profits are going to be paying for that. But I still want you guys to understand the intricacies of it. Now, there's a tool that I think some of you guys know of that I'm just going to bring up right now. If you want to use it, you can. I don't use it a whole lot, but some of my clients like it because it's a type of calculator that works well for eBay. This is called salecalc.com, SALECALC.com, salecalc. And this is kind of cool because you can actually it'll actually do all of this math for you, right? We could figure out if our example is even correct based on this tool, because you can choose the format. You can say, it was a fixed price, no insertion fee. You can choose the category, whatever category it is. You can say whether or not you have an eBay store. And then you can come down here and there's some inputs on how much it costs you to get the item, how much you sold it for, the shipping price. Anyway, it's kind of a cool little tool to use, I guess, if you want to be really specific about every listing you do. And I've had a few clients use it. I don't know. I just think the fees now are easy enough to where a tool like this isn't necessary. Like when I'm listing products, I don't have this tool up. I'm not punching in numbers and running it through this tool, because this will basically, you'll just put in your inputs, how much you got it for, how much you sold it for, how much was the shipping. You'll put in those inputs and it'll spit out how much money you made or lost. This is salecalc.com. If you guys want to take a look at it, you're obviously more than welcome to. But you know what? I don't use it a lot. So, and I bet some of you guys who are a little more seasoned probably don't use it either, just because, eBay sometimes when you're listing items, it's about speed and it's about getting things done. And sometimes this slows you down a little bit, but you're welcome to it. If you want to check it out, you're more than welcome to take a look. Last but not least, before we close up, guys, there are times on eBay where you'll make a sale on an item. We'll probably cover this more in another webinar, but you'll make a sale on an item and the person won't pay. So let's say you ran an auction. The person who won the auction gets a notification, and eBay says, "Hey, congratulations, you won the auction for $115. Go ahead and pay." Well, what happens if the person forgets or doesn't get back online or doesn't pay you, or it doesn't happen very often, guys, but it does happen every once in a while. If somebody doesn't pay you, you're obviously not going to get hit with that PayPal fee, because they never sent you money, so you're never getting hit with that fee. But eBay is going to assume that you were paid, and so they're going to be sending you an invoice for 10% of whatever you sold it for. So if somebody doesn't pay you for some reason, take the time to open up what's called a case. You have to open up a case through the eBay Resolution Center. And all that is you're basically reporting to eBay that somebody didn't pay you and that you shouldn't get a 10% fee. And then they'll make sure that it doesn't happen. In fact, eBay will try to contact the person and say, "Hey, you're supposed to pay for this item," and sometimes people will at that point. But you want to leave that in the hands of eBay if somebody doesn't pay. Talk to your coach more about that if you have any issues there. We won't cover that here just because that doesn't fit with the scope of our webinar as much. But anyway, that's eBay fees in a nutshell. We're going to be profitable on eBay when we're selling, so we're going to be smart about the fees. We're going to calculate those into the price, and you guys shouldn't come out of pocket for them if we do this the right way. So before I finish up, I'll just answer a few questions, and then we'll finish up for today. Next week's webinar, we're going to cover more on eBay. Probably be something a little bit different next week. We may do something brand new, so we'll see what happens. I'll let you guys know. In fact, in the schedule, you'll see kind of what the topic will be. So you're welcome. Of course, we want you to come. These sessions are going to start filling up more and more, so please come to as many as you can, even if it is just to review some of the stuff that you've already learned in the past. So are there any questions? I'd love to take them right now, and if not, we'll finish up. I'll give you guys just a sec. Okay, I'm not seeing any come in. I guess that's a good sign. Maybe we covered this pretty well. Let's finish up then. Again, glad to have everybody here. Thanks for coming to the webinar. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we'll see you guys hopefully next week. Thanks again.